All right, off to a great start. So sorry about that. Okay, so welcome to Sapphics in SFF, which is a panel all about talking about Sapphics in SFF. My name is Alex. I am the host of this panel, and will do my best not to talk too much. I have five lovely authors here to talk with me all about Sapphics in SFF, and so they're going to introduce themselves right now. And Day, why don't you get started?
Hello. Thank you for having me, Alex. Um, I'm Daystorm. I'm a non-binary author from the Midwest who mainly writes erotic romance in the contemporary and fantasy and paranormal genres. My pronouns are they, she, and I'm really glad to be here.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Day. Dax, why don't you go next?
Hi, I am Dax. I write epic and high fantasy. Uh, Lots of magic, lots of adventuring, and lots of sapphics.
Yeah, that's what we're all about here. Lads, why don't you go next?
Hello, my name is Lads. My pronouns are they, them. I'm currently based in Texas and I write dark fantasy horror crossover. Um, Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Morgan, why don't you go next?
I'm Morgan Dante. My pronouns are they, them. I do a lot of like queer and dark and gothic romance and horror romance. And some of them are sapphic. My sapphic books include Providence Girls and Unholy with Eyes Like Wolves. And thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, V, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm V. My tag is usually visceral hit. My pronouns are they, them. I'm a non binary author and illustrator. Currently, I'm working on Beyond Bringers, which is a sci fi horror novel that's about limits, language, and where humanity is lost. And I really like to make weird stories that push boundaries and perception. Uh, Everything I write is queer. That's just who I am. So, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. It's the best kind of stuff to write. Last but not least, I'm Alex. I am a non binary and autistic author from the Pacific Northwest. I use they, them pronouns. Typically write dark and queer fantasy. I wrote and released my debut novel, A Sharp and Lasting Pain, last October. Moving on, let's talk about some of your Sapphic SFF or your favorite SFF books with Sapphic characters in them, or your favorite Sapphic SFF books overall.
I can go first because I prepared. Hi. So the way that I picked what my faves are kind of like okay, so if I had to pick one to be like this is the Sapphic SFF book, for me that's Metal from Heaven by August Clark. It is like an industrial revolution fantasy. Um about a girl avenging her family who was killed in a strike. It's really thorny. The language is beautiful. I have not stopped thinking about it since I finished it in April. And then for the indie side of things, we have The Scales of Seduction, which is a Medusa Basilisk retelling by Rianne Gray. Again, beautiful, lush prose, gets right to the point. Then for something a little bit older, we have The Gilda Stories, which are the lesbian vampires of all time by Joelle Gomes. And then for a book that isn't Sapphics, but features a Sapphic character that I also have not stopped thinking about, is A Botanical Daughter by Noah Medlock, which is two plant dads make a Sapphic plant daughter. What could go wrong? So yeah, that's what I bring to the table, but I tend to read enough Sapphic works that I'll pick up one that isn't and be very confused for the first, like, moment of reading. I'm like, where are the lesbians?
The whole mood.
I think
I'm going to do. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm gonna do just the ones that I've read in the last year because it was too much trying to like figure out of all time. But the first is Cradle of Eternal Night. Glad you can say something.
I did bark out stop, but thank you.
That it's like
That's by me.
it's got like dark fantasy horror, like saving the world, like adventure feelings about like hope in the dark and like it was amazing. Name Her Holy, which is like science fantasy with like swords and a chronically ill chosen one. That really made me like feel seen with that. And same with the third one, They Who Brought the Storm, another like chronically ill, disabled, chosen one, epic fantasy with dragons and magic that leaves magic that has a lot of consequences. But those are the ones that I've read in the last yearish that like really stood out to me.
Is the last book by Vela Dinar and Micah and Andrea?
Yes, that is correct.
Cool.
I think for me, I'm going to go with a recency bias here. I most recently read through the Southern Reach series, and I was just kind of blown away by the casual queerness that ended up on the page after reading the first book. I hardly expected it, and then as the series unfolded, there was just so many beautifully queer characters that had their lives intertwined with the horrors that were going on around them. And I really loved Grace and Gloria, who at times seem together and at others have their own sort of normal life outside of what they do in the Southern Reach. And I was just kind of blown away by the way that it unfolds on the page. I think it was very it spoke to me in a way that I haven't seen in quite some time. So that one really stood out to me, and that's what I gotta claim as my current fave. um, the Southern Reach series is by Jeff Vandermeer as well.
What the
That's
mean?
oh, sorry, that's Annihilation, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Ooh, cool. So
Anyone
for oh oh sorry, what'd you say?
ask if anybody else had thoughts? Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. So I agree with the Gilda stories and Skills of Seduction. Those ones are pretty great. I also really liked This Is How You Lose the Time War. I thought that was just like it was a very like interesting way of telling a story, and like I read it in one sitting. I also really liked The Faceless Thing We Adore by Hester Steele, which I think is either coming out soon or it's already come out, which it's a sapphic kind of cosmic horror where the girl, she does, what any of us would do, and she leaves her loser boyfriend and she joins a cosmic horror cult. And then this one is mostly gothic horror, but I also feel like it fits dark fantasy. I really like House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson, which is about a woman who has to become a blood maid to like an Elizabeth Bathory figure.
I've heard great things about that one.
Yes, it's so good.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much for sharing. Uh, let's move on to our next question unless anybody else has any other input.
Um, I feel like I've not done much reading in the last few years because I've been so busy writing. But I think I would mention um, this novella called Embracing Irina by Michelle Mars. It is a science fiction and paranormal romance novella that features an alien woman who is part of the aliens who have come to relocate everyone on Earth to protect them, so taking them to another planet where they'll be safe, that, that's habitable for them. And a another woman who is part of a family of bear shifters. And the entire novella sort of takes place over the Jewish holiday of Rosh Hashanah, um, and it's really cute, and it's a really fun mix of science fiction and shifters and Jewish representation, Sapphic representation, and like baking. It's really fun. Um, there's some nice interactions between them regarding uh, Jewish holidays and the alien learning about specific customs and how like being a bear shifter impacts that as well, and being an alien warrior, how that impacts um, being introduced to the family. So it's a not a very well known one. So I thought I'd mention it.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. Moving on to our next question. In a few words, what has the reception been like for your Sapphic SFF characters?
I think for me, uh, my Beyond Bringers has a sapphic lead character, and she in general has gotten a very positive reception. But the story itself features a lot of people being very messy, very vulnerable, and just very raw. And the response to the characters has been um, honestly, I didn't expect people to like all of them as much as they have. I've had a lot of people tell me that they relate, especially with Molly. And I don't know if that's really a good thing. I'm really happy for all of you, though. And that's been just very surprising. But to see so many people react positively to um, sapphic characters in difficult situations has been amazing because I think sometimes there is a different expectation for characters in sapphic work that people have going in where they expect things to be a lot cleaner. So seeing a lot of people react positively to mess has been really heartening to me. So
I'm gonna like hop onto that. I've written quite a few very messy sapphic characters, ones that are like grappling with uh trauma and unlearning some of the unhealthy maladaptive behaviors that come with that. Um and I first published in like 2017, which is when like the height of like own voices and people were really concerned about like quote unquote good rep and not as like open to like messier characters that maybe are more human. Um, but like finding the audience has really helped with that. Like finding people that want like the messy sapphics, the toxic Yuri, the sicko lesbians, finding the people that like want that helps a lot, and not trying to like I don't know how to say this. Not concerning myself what people think who are like not down with that.
yeah, it's just writing whatever feels right and human in the moment is like incredible. You're so right.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I was also concerned because I really I do like writing toxic characters, but I also like exploring a lot about trauma. And yeah, I was definitely concerned going in, but I think I've been really humbled by the like positive reception to my sapphic characters.
Yeah, I feel like my experience has been like, damn, the lesbians show up when you make lesbians. So that's been really fun.
100%.
Because I found
Yeah.
that like that readership is actually pretty voracious. I know there's like a bit of a reach challenge, but I think that just kind of goes along with like the sauce of what a lot of us are making. Because it's funny because I did intentionally set out to write cradle to romance beats, but I feel like a lot in the like lesbian romance space that doesn't like I don't want to say necessarily gel with, but like the expectations from like characters and plot are different. Um Man, I forgot where I was going with that, but like so like trying to find a space for Cradle in like that more romance oriented has been a bit of a challenge. But when it comes to like people who are SFF readers, yeah, the reception there has been pretty good. And like I said earlier, the Sapphics will show up if you build
Yes.
it.
They do
If you
indeed show
build
up.
the bridge, they will come. They will be there. um, I actually had someone who wasn't expecting the content inside of Beyond Bringers read it recently, and their commentary was very positive, but also I could definitely tell that this wasn't their usual niche, and I was just happy to see that they they stuck it out. um, yeah,
That's good, right? I mean,
yeah,
thank you guys for sharing.
I feel sorry. I always pop in right when you think I'm not gonna pop in. Um, I feel like for my Sapphic characters in my fantasy paranormal romance that I've written, I've only done one. I have more planned, but what I've noticed is uh generally they're they're well recepted. Yeah, that's the right word. Um, but I have noticed that what people have patience for changes. Like something that happens with something a sapphic character does in the relationship that's part of the romance. It, I have noticed people will find it more annoying as compared to if it wasn't a sapphic relationship. They're more accepting of what the characters do. I feel like there's more judgment when the characters are sapphic personally. That's what I've experienced.
I definitely feel that there's definitely a kind of slant when it comes. The more women characters you tend to have in books, the more critical people tend to be of them, I guess I would say. Thank
Yeah,
you so much.
I like don't know how much of that is like a sapphic specific problem or if it's just a like
Yeah, totally.
casual misogyny and reader
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
spaces
like
problem.
you're gonna notice misogyny more when you have mostly
More women, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for sharing. Our next question is going to be kind of jumping off of that. How do you see sapphic representation in SFF as part of the ecosystem of LGBTQ plus literature? In your experience, has there been a difference in reception between sapphic works and other identities?
Yes.
I was gonna say, I feel like there is such a rich variety of LGBTQ works. However, there can always be more. So, like, one quote that I remember hearing from an author who, like, God, I forget how long ago it was, but she said something to the effect of there are so many lesbian books out right now that I'm not morally obligated to love them all. And, like, I feel like any kind of differences can just be like, I'm sure it's like going to be more stark once there's like more, but just always more books. We need more things happening all of the time. Across, I think, all different LGBT representations. And I think it also just kind of has to come down to like market size. Because I feel like the MM readership is just bigger. But yeah.
Yeah, I have to agree. I don't often come across like a super big difference, because even if there are, other LGBTQ amalgamations of couples in any of the work that I've made, I don't see a huge difference in people's interest in those aspects. Um, but I do still see a lot of people saying they can't find what we're making. And there are so many of us making so many incredible things that, from the side of people who are making it, it's baffling to see people, even in our circle, say, I can't find this thing I'm looking for. When I know like six or seven things that fit what they're looking for. And if I know them, I can obviously be like, hey, you might be looking for this. But sometimes I just can't believe that it's still something that people are saying that they can't find this particular brand of sapphic fiction. And it is definitely there. So I think part of it is like, I wonder how we're going to um kind of like bridge the gap in how we used to have chronological tagging, and things were in that sense easier to discover. There was a period of time where I felt like things were easier to find, and if I was looking for sapphic work, I could just type it into Tumblr in the tags and just scroll through chronologically everybody's stuff. But now it's just kind of like the same six things at the top all of the time. So can't really say blame people for saying they have a hard time finding either.
To be fair,
Yeah,
Tumblr
I
search has kind of gone in the trash.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it used to be like after they did that ban, I would like label things as like lesbian or sapphic, and it would get marked as like, oh, we're hiding this because we think it might be like, unsafe or whatever. So that also didn't help.
No, that did not help at all. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
also just feel like there's a lot more attention given. Maybe this is just me being sensitive to it. But like seeing a list of like, oh, top 10 LGBTQ books of the year, and like 9 of them are like MM. And it's like, oh, don't know if this is a sexism thing, or the person putting this list together just has their own biases that like they're unaware of. Uh, but yeah, like the discovery, I hear so many people saying like, I can't find them, and I'm like, gosh, I can list like 50 books off the top of my head that meet this criteria that you're looking for, but they just don't show up, or are in like the searches, or they're not being talked about, or they're not being given attention. I don't know how to solve that problem though.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like I was inspired by your newsletter, or I think it was actually a blog post, Dax, on how to market when you're in between releases. Where, like, I do so much of putting out the energy I want in the world, which, if you've seen the energy I put out into the world, this might be concerning. However, I found that I've actually gotten a lot from like the most enjoyment in terms of like social media marketing when I can like pull up my own rec lists of just like, here's some sword lesbians. And it's just like stacking sword lesbian books. So like unfortunately it is limited to things that I physically own, but the number of times I've gotten a comment that's like, thanks for showing books that I haven't already seen on TikTok 50 bazillion times. I'm like, yeah, we are limited to what is in my house, but also it's my list. Go make your own.
Yeah.
Shogun.
My there is definitely less people reading sapphic fiction in general, but definitely I think sapphic SFF. Um, and so I feel like the reception of the people, like the people who are reading it, they tend to like it. The issue is just that there's simply not that many, and therefore there's not as many people talking about it. The majority of the people that I hear talking about sapphic science fiction and fantasy are the authors of it. Um, it's not like it's really a very small percentage of the book, like the reader specific spaces on social media in comparison to and MF. Um, and I don't necessarily I don't want those books to get less to be read less. I just want sapphic books to be read more. Um, and get more attention on them. And part of it's definitely uh, the difficulty finding them. Um, but sapphic content in general tends to be less wanted by the general public. Um, and it's kind of a, a problem that's you're not really able to tackle on an individual level.
I think there's also like, I know this probably is like a tangent to the question, but with going off of what you said about like SFF being like not as big of a genre, I was just remembering a sapphic fic event. I was in, I think it was in like December around like the holidays, I think. But they'd organized like a 99-cent sale, and I put one of my sapphic SFF books in it, and the day of the sale like came, and like the list of books was released, and it was like uh, um cowboy romance, billionaire cowboy romance, sports romance, historical romance, like all these subgenres of romance, and then at like the very bottom was science fiction and fantasy, and it was like 5 books with one of them being mine, and I was just like, we don't even have enough here to like break it out science fiction from fantasy. And I was like, I don't know, in like the context of like LGBTQ literature, it seems like a lot of people prefer contemporary capital R romance over like genres.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I feel like from what I remember from when I was like way more of a reviewer, like even going on like the NetGalley, like LGBTQ plus category, right? And it was like mostly romance, which I think just doesn't help anything. Like it's gotten much better within the last few years, but like unless something wasn't like being marketed as lesbians or like sapphics, good luck reading and
Yeah.
finding out.
I think a lot of
Surprise.
I think a lot of things also kind of get lost when they're genre, like if the genre is sci-fi and fantasy and it's like the top thing that they're getting categorized as, they end up like, because of the genre, then um in indie spaces we have a lot more freedom to kind of talk about the whole thing that we're selling you. But I think in more traditional publishing spaces, if the genre is preceding the romance aspect, sometimes the LGBTQ tag doesn't even get ascribed to the thing. Um, and we may, if you're only looking for that, then you may only see the romance things that don't have anything to do with the genre. But I think in the context of the Worldcon panel where people were upset, or rather, the panel runner seemed to be upset that all of the strong women were being turned gay, basically. um, I think that there was a little bit of a maybe it's like a reactionary surprise to the fact that like we are here and we exist in this genre, and maybe it's a telling and showing of the times that we are breaking in, and a lot more of our work is making it out there and people are reading it more and reviewing it more and talking about it even more than they were before, which is honestly a great thing because that means that people are bumping into us whether they are looking for our niche or not.
Yeah, that's kind of the experience that I have. Like, I used to post my writing online, and so I was on Wattpad for years. And it used to be that, like, you can have your little gay stories, but they have to be in the gay section. It was generally like the reader expectation. Like, I'd be in book clubs and whatnot, and so many people would be like, I don't want to read gay characters. Or, and I just write lesbians. So, uh, it was very frustrating because you couldn't have gay fantasy or gay romance even, it was just, you can only be gay, and that's it. They didn't
Yeah.
want anything else.
Yeah, there was a lot of that, and I wasn't on Wattpad, but I spent a lot of time. I can go all the way back, LiveJournal, Quizilla, fanfiction.net,
Fanfiction.net. Nope,
everything that got killed over the years, basically.
I
And
agree.
there was a big push against things being gay unless that was the first thing you said about it, right there in the very beginning. Made it very clear. Lemon, don't like, don't read. Um, so that I think the times have changed a couple of times since then, and it's good. It's a good thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
I agree, yeah. Okay, well, next up we're going to talk about advertising. So how do you manage advertising your works and generally speaking about them when even the words for sapphic identities and pairings are censored nowadays?
Uh-oh.
So the
I
other day, oh, sorry.
nope, nope, you're going first.
Well, thank you. uh, Now I've completely lost my thought. So, oh, so it was like I say the other day, but it was like a month ago. I was updating the A plus content for one of my books, and I was putting up one of the images um, that I was putting up a new image, and the old images got flagged, and I'd like put alt text for it for the images, and I'm like, why is this image getting flagged? It was okay in March. Why is it now not okay in June? And it took me a long time to realize that Amazon does not want you to use the word lesbian in their A plus content. And like the image that I was sharing was like mentioning that it was a award finalist for lesbian representation. And I'm like, how am I supposed to alt text this without using the word? Literally cannot use the word on Amazon. But if you don't disclose it, you get people angry that you didn't disclose it and you force them to read triggering sapphic content.
You, honestly.
I
Just
remember
kidding.
seeing you post about that, and I felt so many emotions. Like it was like really bad. And I'm so sorry that happened to you because yeah, it does turn into how do we get around this? And
Yeah, the start of like my marketing crash out was seeing people use the phrase girl kisser to describe sapphic things, and I was like, absolutely not.
Just
Sir, oh my
no.
god!
No. I know at least on TikTok they do let you use one instance of lesbian per post. But
Wow,
less
you're one
facetious
allotted
stuff,
lesbian.
right?
They're treating it like that one, like, in PG-13 movies where you can only, like, say, I think, like, the F
Like
word, like,
two
plus
F
one time.
bombs, yeah. Yeah, so I think the way I've gotten around it though, which I think is I guess almost like a trick afforded by the fact that like the work is not just sapphic, but it is also SFF, of where I lean a lot more into the SFF elements, and then be like, oh, by the way, there's lesbians, instead of like making that the core focus. But like not even in a way to like get around the words we can and can't use. It's just I think so much of the draw for me is like everything else, which is how like I get into reading books and being like, wow, that book was really good. Where were the sapphics when there was, to be clear, usually no expectation of such? So it's like, oh yeah, it's like all the other like plot, aesthetic, world building trappings that like get me to stick around. So I try to like market and communicate around that.
Yeah, I do the same thing, and if um, I tend to go for, like, the character relationships aspect of things. I don't need to say any of the, air quotes, "banned words." I can just use the characters' names, and you can infer from them and the way that I'm talking about them that these 2 probably have some kind of either it's a romance or something worse, going on, between the 2 of them, and you can decide for yourself if that's something that you're interested in. But it is a shame that we're losing easy tags for things because sometimes people are like, I just want to see all of the lesbians that are doing magic. And that's such a hard thing to search for without the ability to use the word sapphic or lesbian or anything like that. And it, it is bad. Um, prior to let's see, July 25th, I would have said that like itch bundles are a great way to kind of share audiences with other people and increase your reach with people who are making work a lot like yours. But I don't really know how viable that strategy is going to be going forward because with all of the recent issues with conservative shout, it's kind of like, well, it it might be okay, it might not. We really haven't seen how that's like shaken out just yet. So um, we did lose yet another tool recently, but
Bitch situation makes me so fucking sad.
yeah, it's like
Yeah,
genuinely tragic.
Yeah, and I think
I
with like, uh, sorry, Day.
it's okay. Um, I'm kind of just tossing everything out and hoping somebody finds it because I can't really hide my like stuff behind like how do you say sapphic erotic monster romance without saying that? I'm kind of just like I'm just not censoring anything, and I'm just like somebody somebody will find this. I have not been using TikTok lately, granted, because it's so difficult to do that there. So I am trying to figure out how to get back into TikTok. But in terms of other places, I'm trying to find like community tags and putting those in there as much as possible while also still using the words that essentially get things shadow banned because I'm not necessarily able to lean into other aspects of the genre because even just saying like monster is a problem depending on the platform. Um, and I will say I'm leaning on images more than the caption. I will put things that are not as shadow banned in the caption and then, do like trope maps where it's easier to disguise the information a little bit more. Um, but it really sucks having to do that at all. Uh, yeah.
If I can just co-opt this for like 3 seconds to do a shameless plug, there is a collective of creatives and those who love them trying to create a new platform, Conjured Inc. So if you want to be a part of that, trying to build a platform that we're not going to have to run from in 3 months, like we've been doing since the Eternal September.
Yeah.
Yes, Conjured Ink looks really exciting. So I'm really excited about that.
Too honestly, even though I am technologically inept. Okay,
Yeah.
so our next two questions really are going to require a little bit of context for anybody who is not the panelist. So this image is courtesy of Amal at Motar's Blue Sky because she's the one who kind of first brought this to people's attention when the Worldcon panel schedule dropped. And so there was a panel scheduled for Thursday at 9 a.m. called "Strong Women Lead Does Not Equal LGBTQIA+." And the description reads, have you ever walked into a bookshop and asked for books with strong women leads? Perhaps you've requested that love not be a major plot point. Has the staff excitedly passed you half a dozen books that, though good, have a bit of a repeating theme? Here we ask the question, why do authors/bookshops assume the only way to have a strong woman lead is to make them gay with a women love interest and prevent men characters from rising over the background? Isn't it possible to have a book with strong women and men characters in it and not have them fall in love? So our first question about this, what were your first thoughts and feelings upon hearing about the announcement of this panel?
I I hooted and hollered. Because what? I want to live in this universe where you go, hello, I would like a strong female character, and someone just forces lesbians upon you because one, what? Two, where are all these strong women lesbian books? Because I shit you not. Like Gideon the Ninth is the only butches I can think of. Where are all of these?
Yeah, right. Like that's my childhood dream is walking into a bookstore and being recommended things that I was actually looking for.
It's just all Xena all the time.
Yeah.
I remember like walking into, I think it was Borders. Does anybody remember Borders? And asking for like, a Sapphic SFF, and the only one they handed me was Ash by Melinda Lowe, and that was actually my first Sapphic SFF book. Um, but it's like,
And
where is
like,
this bookshop at? Where's this bookshop? Because it wasn't Borders. I mean, granted, this was like 2006, but I need this
yeah,
bookshop in my life.
I feel like there's like two separate issues happening where like one, yeah, where's this hypothetical bookshop? But two, I feel like there's a way to convey that like I want adventure stories without like romance, without being like, yo, why are these women lesbians now though? Like there's gotta be a better way to ask that question.
Yeah, like there has to be a better way to ask it, and perhaps a convention panel is not your stage. It is a little bit inappropriate, but at the end of the day, kind of like people having this reaction just kind of like affirms to me, like I said before, at the end of the day, good. I hope there's more of them congratulations, and I'm sorry that you're upset, but I am living in my lane and I'm happy about it. So sorry that it's not for you, but not everything is going to be for you, and that's okay. Um, really bold to get up and want to do it on a convention panel stage, but you know,
It's
there's
also
always gonna
wild.
yeah, like there's always gonna
It's
be people
always
who want to.
it's also wild for a convention for an award that I'm pretty sure is Tasha Surree's like lesbian SFF nominated. Like, what audience is this for?
Yeah. Like, who did you expect was gonna show up to this panel? Were you just hoping for, like were you hoping to find a room full of like minds, or did you ever consider the possibility that you might get booed? I mean, if this came to pass and this panel actually ran, like, people could show up and boo you. Like, do you really want that to happen?
I
Okay.
I think there's also like it's really telling like that last paragraph. Like if you read the thing, like it doesn't cohesively like transition from like one thought of like why is it always sapphics to like the second thought of like why can't men rise above the background? And I'm all I can think of is that that line like is really telling because like you can find like media studies that like women can relate to male characters when they are in shows without having like a disconnect, but like a lot of media studies show that like men feel like women are too many of the characters even when they're like 30% of the characters. So like I think this person's like actual issue is that they're reading these books and not being able to relate to the fact that there's multiple women in it. Sorry to get a little like controversial there, but
Oh, I think there's definitely an aspect of that, right? Like, it that is a study and it exists out there and it certainly has a basis. So if you're not, whether the people who feel kind of scandalized by the results of that study are willing to accept it or not, there is perhaps something that they should dig under the surface in there a little bit. Like, ask yourself why you can't relate to women characters doing the exact same things that a a male character could do. Is there a reason why you don't believe in identifying with these characters? What about yourself is preventing you from doing that? Because that's how, people are going to grow as a society is asking those questions.
So my first thought when I saw uh, that specific panel info was just it's just someone going, why gay? Why women gay? Why women? Why women gay? And like uh it's so silly because like said previously, it's sapphic sci-fi and fantasy is not even remotely the majority in any bookshop I've ever been in, whether it's mainstream or indie. You are going to find far less uh, sapphic SFF, and it feels like a better question. A better idea for a panel would have been like strong woman lead doesn't have to include romance. I still would not like love that panel, but saying like, hey, why are all of the like if somebody was like a lot of sci-fi and fantasy that includes a woman main character also includes romance, and maybe it's not the same if a character is the main character is a man. I don't know if that's the case, but you know, that certainly would have been a better panel idea as opposed to why are all the women gay in these books? That's not even
I
true.
one is a
I'm sorry,
panel
it's
that
just
can
because
run.
it's preferable.
Yeah. One is a panel that can run, and one is a panel that you have to cancel. So
And and again,
and
and
it
like
does,
there's sorry.
and it like it doesn't even make sense. Like what a strong you don't have to, it's like you don't have to make a strong woman lead gay, and then immediately goes into prevent men characters from rising over the background. What about being gay prevents, like it's implying that the strong woman lead being gay is preventing the men in the book from rising over the background, and I don't even understand what rising over the background means. Isn't that kind of like rising over the background to do what? Like it doesn't, like I'm just gonna say the it's like it was written by AI. It's like somebody put write me a panel that is about not liking strong women leads in sci-fi and fantasy being gay, and somehow it turned into
And
being gay
again,
is stopping men from rising above the.
yeah, and I think I also wonder how much of it is just like a market perception problem, right? Where like I've seen, for lack of a better word, discourse about like, oh, why are all the fantasy books romantasy now? And it's like, one, they're really not. Just because like one platform is talking about that, like, doesn't necessarily mean that the whole market is now just like romance. But yeah, like better ways to phrase the thing you are frustrated about, I feel
Yeah.
like is the theme.
If
And I
And
don't
the
even think
last
sorry.
the last sentence is, isn't it possible to have a book with strong women and men characters in it and not have them fall in love? And that sentence doesn't have anything to do with
Yeah,
the
that
previous
confused
things.
me.
It's like I
We're
thought this
talking
was
about
about
lesbians. Why are there men here? What's going on?
what's
Yeah.
going on.
And I think that they would have like a problem even if there wasn't romance, because like, I can think of like The Dragon Next Door, uh, Journey Home, which has like a sapphic QPR. Like I can think of multiple books that are like sapphic main characters without a romance in them. And I kind of think that the person that is running this panel or tried to propose this panel would also have a problem with them because of the number of women in it, even though
Yeah,
it
where are the men?
have a romance.
yeah, like, and it sounds like the panel is trying to pick out like let's be real. Like they're looking to pick out the man that was in the background and be like, but the story should have been about him. That this is the guy that the story should have been about, while the rest of the book, it would have made a good book if it was about this guy, but it wasn't, and it was about these lesbians instead, so it was bad. Um, and that's just like so rarely true, especially because like from a writer's perspective, we pick our main characters very intentionally. Um, and they're picked the way that they are because they can tell the story that we're trying to tell with the world. So it doesn't matter how many intriguing background characters there are. They were looked over for a reason. Like whatever story they would have told isn't going to be the one that was intended to be in this book and either wouldn't have been as good or just wasn't what the author wanted to write. So you know, um, if you want a passionless book where someone was forced to write the background character as the main character against their will, then I, you can have it, but it's not going to be a very good book. It might
yeah,
come out tortured.
just wanted to point out this comment from Lily in the live chat. Where are all the men is literally a question my MFA thesis advisor asked me like 6 years ago, and it's still relevant somehow.
I received similar feedback because I when I was in my master's, and it was like professional writing, and I mostly did technical writing, but I did some creative writing. I had a male professor complain that I wrote about too many lesbians.
How dare you,
Time to
honestly.
write. Time to
Right.
write more.
I studied illustration, and I had a lot of fascinating comments about similar things that just kind of came from um, classmates who didn't get it, or the occasional professor that I wonder how they were teaching it in a BFA program. You know, like how did you get
Yeah.
here? You're in the wrong place, buddy.
Okay, the counterpart, or the follow-up, I guess, to this is how can organizers prevent a fiasco like this Worldcon panel from happening again?
I was gonna mention it with the last point, but it's like more salient here. I feel like the biggest issue with everything going on with this Worldcon is the complete detachment from like the community, right? Where even from the beginning, when they first put out that press release about, oh, we used ChatGPT in part of our like evaluation process, and like granted, I know how much like work, time, effort, yada 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 it takes to like really be present in like any community, but like even with me pulling back from like traditionally published SFF, like there are names I could recognize, like, and so it's just like flabbergasting to me how little care there is for like knowing who is actually a part of the broader, especially like the award circuit SFF community, that I think having more of that connection would assuage so many of these problems.
Yeah, like if you don't know, then ask somebody who knows and get in contact with some of us who are part of it, because that's how you avoid these kinds of situations. And at the end of like I wonder how much you can avoid them without like really interrogating people who are trying to run these panels. And I don't really agree with like really strict interrogation of panels before they're up. But some questions could be asked, right? Like a little bit of sensitivity can be offered to situations, because you don't want to create a kind of a hostile relationship between people who are presenting panels to you and your approval team, because then no one will ever want to submit panels again, and you're at the mercy of whoever is looking over your panels. But you also don't want to be so blasé that something like this gets published with the copy that it was published with, because then you have people like us who go, "Hey, what? Like, why did this happen?" You are so
Right.
disconnected, so unaware of what's going on, and then you know, egg on your face a little bit there. There's like a
There were
happy.
so yeah, there were so many panels that were like listed where I'm like, what year is it? These sound like Tumblr from 2012.
Yeah, like they sounded really
And
old.
this was
I
one of them because like there's still people being like, ugh, I want a book with like a strong female character. Why is there a romance? Except now I guess the question is, oh, she's gay. Like what?
it felt
Right.
very much like reading people complain about Naruto fan fiction a little bit. Like,
I
yeah.
was
I
trying to
feel like
explain this fiasco to somebody, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
And I had to play like a little bit of like historian and like, push up the my glasses on the bridge of my nose and, you know, back in 2015, like getting into like, like sad puppies stuff, because like I don't think you can really discuss how like Worldcon got here without like discussing a lot of like the history of it as like an institution that perpetuates and holds up like hegemonic powers in science fiction fantasy. Like
Yeah.
some of the awards are still named after like huge racist people.
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
science fiction and fantasy like has had like a problem with like women having to like write under initialist, like initialized pen names, and you still have people wondering like who AC Crispin is, and I'm like, she's a good writer. Why are you? Why are we wondering this still? But like, I think like the Hugos and Worldcon are just like have so much like entrenched prejudice in them that like I don't know if like preventing this is something that those organizers have in their like skill set.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
honestly.
I feel like honestly being like, "Hey, you're not a bigot, right?" And then anyone who's incredibly defensive probably shouldn't do a panel. But I think that a problem is that these organizers potentially don't want to do the things that would prevent it. Um, that it's not necessarily something they care about. Uh, aside from like the negative reception to things, like I think that potentially this panel might have happened if there hadn't been so much backlash, if like people hadn't spoken out about it, or it hadn't been like seen as much before actually happening. I think that I still would have gone through with it. I can't say for sure, but it's difficult to say what organizers can do to prevent these things when, frankly, it doesn't seem like a lot of organizers really care about the LGBTQIA plus community enough to do those things unless it severely impacts their income. And really, I think that if I were to say what they could do, it would probably be to start from the beginning with how they do things and like completely re evaluate uh, how they do things, why, and what they're doing. You know.
Would definitely agree with that because especially I think we first started seeing the problems in 2023 when they were in China, but like this year especially has been misstep after misstep after misstep. And it's very unfortunate because like even this panel, it was pulled for review. As far as I know, there hasn't even been a statement that's like we're not doing this at all. Just we pulled it so we can look at it again. And so there's still a chance that this could happen.
Yeah, I think it
Boo,
frequently
tomato,
is.
tomato.
Yeah, people tend to like if there is no outcry that they're just gonna let it happen. I've been going to cons and not always, mostly in like the anime and manga convention space since I think 2006. Um, I've had to cut back a lot in recent years because of my health, but prior to all of this, I've seen some of the most ridiculous and oftentimes offensive panels just allowed to run and nobody says anything about it. And those spaces aren't as, they're not necessarily for literature. So, sometimes it's not about, it's not the same space, it's not the same crowds, but a lot of the times people organizing conventions, I see a lot of their energy go towards just simply making the thing happen, and there is a lot less resources spared to making sure they happen right. And that's not every con. and that's not every every situation, but there are many that are relying on volunteers to an extent that they shouldn't be. There are a lot that end up in situations like this because of that, and I really do think the best thing they could do is reach out to the communities that they're trying to service, and hopefully they care about the LGBTQ community enough to want to do that and do better. But given the kind of recent history of things, it does make me wonder if they do care enough, which sucks.
Yeah. Well, we will see. Like I mentioned in the live chat, there is a mistakes at Worldcon panel that they are having, and I plan to be there and politely yelling at them about it. So we'll see what happens.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, live tweet it for me.
Yes, absolutely.
Please do.
Specific. No, I'm kidding.
Moving on to something a little lighter, though. What advice do you have for newer sapphic authors attempting to find a place for themselves in SFF spaces?
Make friends, other
Finish the book.
authors. That
Yeah,
too.
Finish.
just
Yeah,
go
finish
for
it.
it. Write what you want to write.
Um, accept that you're gonna butt heads with people sometimes, and that's okay. It
Yeah.
a little friction, just let it go. It's okay. We're all, at the end of the day, we're a small niche, um, bigger every day, but just be nice to everybody, make friends, and just let things roll off your back. Because if you are someone who really wants to hold grudges or engage in like really intense discourse, um, it's going to be a lot harder to make those friends. Just be genuine about it.
I think this is just like general author advice too, but like don't view other authors as like competition or like, you know, I know like capitalism is inescapable and all consuming and, wants you to believe that like if your book isn't the one being talked about, it's not a good book. But like other authors aren't your competition. Other writers aren't like a threat to you. Readers can read multiple books in a day, like some of them are that fast. And if they're not reading your book, like it doesn't mean that they don't like it or that they won't get to it. So just everybody's very patiently waiting for the next George R. Martin book, but that doesn't mean that other fantasy authors aren't having their books out and other fantasy readers aren't like getting their fix with those other books. I hope that analogy made sense.
Dex is so right. Like we have to uplift each other and be there for each other and be friends because we can't be enemies. It's just not gonna work. um,
It's like pros. We all talk. Cons. We all talk.
yes.
Right.
True.
Yeah. And it's also like that cake metaphor, more of us doing it, more cakes.
I need the cake metaphor on a regular basis.
The cake metaphor saves my life every day because it's
Yeah.
it's so hard not to see everybody else around you winning awards, getting published in magazines, getting, seeing other people talk about their work, or even just getting more likes on a post than you. But that is at the end of the day so unimportant. It's about the friends that you make along the way and like caring. You have to care about each other's work. And if you care about each other's cakes, your cakes are going to taste a lot better.
Absolutely. I agree. I think advice I would give is to not put all your eggs in one basket. In terms of community, it's very easy to, find a little corner of the community and sort of stay there and not really interact with anybody else and kind of get stuck there and kind of put all your eggs in this one circle of people. And it's really good to have support like that, but I think anyway that it's important to branch out and not um sort of close yourself off into one space. It's kind of in general, but um it also helps if for some reason you don't have that basket anymore. Like something happens to that basket, that corner of community, you're no longer welcome there. You don't feel safe there, or it's just falling apart. You're not left with like, okay, oh no, I don't have anybody else to talk to about this. I haven't been communicating with anybody else in the community, and you end up feeling like you kind of have to start over. Um, which it's not it's not a very pleasant part of any community, that there can be sort of cliques within it and you can be in one and then suddenly not be in one and find yourself having to start over within that community. So I think it's important to uh, know lots of people. Don't stretch yourself thin and have a tiny piece of egg in 9,000 baskets, but maybe, you know, have lots of different cakes instead of only chocolate cake. Um,
Oh
I
yeah.
think that would be my advice is to know lots of people and with lots of different opinions in ways that they do things in the science fiction and fantasy community, especially the sapphic part of it. Uh, yeah.
I love
Yeah,
that
I
everybody's
think
bringing.
mm,
Sorry, I was just saying I love that everybody's bringing up cakes because Katrina in the live chat mentioned the two cakes meme.
great.
Beautiful.
Yeah, because also kind of adding building on Dave's point about not having all your eggs in one basket. You are more than that one than like your debut. I know that like one of the harder things for me when transitioning from a traditional we published mindset to the indie one is that like in trad pub, like one of my friends I think has debuted 7 times, where there is so much pressure and focus on that first thing. And I think something that I would have liked, I mean, Morgan and I hang out in the same group chat. I'm sure this was actually told to me a whole lot. But like there's more to like your author career than your like first book or even your next book. I know, sorry to specifically call you out, Morgan, because I know you wrote like a specific newsletter about like that 2 to 3 book range is like the hardest.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because like yeah, in indie it feels like the mindset's like the opposite of trad, where it's focusing more on the backlist than like making sure your debut is the one, capital T capital O.
Yeah, I found like in general that like if you're in the indie space, um, there's a lot of there's a lot less pressure on the debut to be like the breakaway pop hit from the musical. Um, but like once you start getting several books out, um, like the word about you increases. Like the more types of pastries you can offer to keep the metaphor going. Like, I'm gesticulating so hard I knocked over my mic. Um,
Oh no.
the more pastries you have to offer, like, the more people are going to come to check out and buy, like, the cake and the pie and the eclairs. So like, if one book isn't doing it for, uh, you know, doing like New York Times bestseller numbers, like, it's fine. You can write another one.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think
And
something.
whether or not people buy that other one has nothing to do with how well the first one performed.
Yeah, like I wish someone had told me starting off to like in the indie space, um, quantity can go a long way sometimes. I'm writing a serial novel at the moment just based on like what I can physically accomplish in a time frame. And I probably should have put out some shorter things first because this demands all of my time, attention, and brain power. And I haven't had a lot of extra time to make those smaller things to sort of have a nest egg of these different pastries as we've been saying. And I think that would have been a good place to start. So if you're daunted by like how big a sci-fi fantasy novel could be, because trust me, I know they can get pretty big. You should definitely, start small. I started small. It got way too big, but you know, the more you have
I'm
to
s-
offer, the better.
I'm so excited that when this draft is finished to just hold up 3 volumes of 3 copies of volume 1 and be like, I wrote this. Sorry.
Yeah. It's yeah. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to fit the whole thing in one printed book just because it was
Well,
intended to be one, but now
uh
I'm at the mercy of what printers will offer me. So
information that might be helpful to someone. Apparently the Ingram single book page length is 1200.
yeah. Make sure you don't exceed that.
1200 pages.
Yeah, just be really careful there.
Good
Uh,
to know.
Um, my speaking of quantity, I think that there can be a lot of pressure um in the indie author community uh to publish a lot, like to publish very often. And it's definitely true that like having the bigger backlog you have, the more you will start to make over the long term. But I wish that somebody had just sat me down and said, you don't have to make a dozen cookies every day just because someone else is making a dozen cookies every day. If it is better on you physically and mentally to make a dozen cookies once a month, once a year, then you should do that because they're I felt a lot of pressure sometimes, going on the don't compare yourself aspect. It's easy to compare yourself with how quickly someone else is getting work out and thinking that's what I want to do. I wish I could do that. But what you wish you could do is not the same as what you're capable of doing right now, and you cannot really go from uh, what you can like what you're capable of writing and publishing non stressfully or as little with as little stress as possible to doing 6 times that um, immediately
I
without
have
losing your mind.
I have one tip that nobody is gonna like, but it's that you should always read all of the terms and services and linked terms and services that are off-site. No matter what you're using, Kindle Unlimited, H.io, doesn't matter. Please read all of the terms and services from top to bottom before you put your work anywhere. You want to know
Absolutely.
100% exactly how much ownership you keep, what their rules are for what you're allowed to buy and sell, and all of that stuff. You can throw some of that stuff out the window. That's your business. But make sure you know so that nothing surprises you in the long run.
I want to build on
1000%.
what Day was saying about like you're setting your own pace. Like, I think Sapphic SFF readers are very hungry readers and are very loyal readers. Like, they won't forget about you. Like, there's this idea in like a lot of like romance like circles that like if you don't have a book out every month, or the readers are going to forget about you. And I put out my first novel in 2017, and I put out like a smattering of like shorter things. But then like my second novel was 2023, and I was like, I'm gonna have to build a readership all over again. I haven't been publishing enough. I, you know, I was chronically ill and sick for a few years and couldn't do a lot of writing, but I didn't have to do that like building the way I thought I was, because like even though it had been multiple years and several internet eras, uh people still remembered, and I was like, oh, well, okay. I thought people were gonna like, who's this? Uh, but like the Sapphic SFF readers are very loyal, and they're not gonna forget you if you have to take several years off to attend to your health or raise a dog or whatever you're doing.
Yeah, and I think that newsletter I wrote, I think I talked about like the two book blues and how I think when you start out and you have like between like 1 to 3 books, it can be like really easy to compare yourself to others and kind of get into this emotional rut. And yeah, I would just say, don't be too hard on yourself. And, whether you like publish something twice a year or, once every few years, you got to go at your own pace and you're good.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of this has been very insightful and very lovely and reassuring for me personally, not gonna lie. Um, we do have two topics left to talk about. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next. So how do you see the broader SFF space shifting with regards to where sapphic stories and characters fit within it?
I think I mentioned earlier, and I've just seen a shift where there there's a lot more of us now, and we're publishing things and getting them out there more and more. And I have such a long list of things to read that are independently published or self-published, and that's incredible because it wasn't that long ago that I was reading people saying that Kindle, KDP was the only way to get indie stuff out there, and now I'm seeing stuff that has nothing to do with them. So we have such a like we're as much as times are, it feels like closing in on us a little bit. We also have so many opportunities to make things and get them out to an audience, and it's to the point that people are complaining about us, so we must be doing something right. Like, maybe we just got to keep pushing a little bit harder. Maybe they'll find something that they actually like. Uh, but yeah, at the top of my backlog of books I want to read right now, I have Maria Ying's Hades Calculus. So I'm really excited to get started on that one next. And the list just goes on forever. So
I think that like I don't know, I'm probably making myself sound really old here, but like I grew up under like Don't Ask, Don't Tell and the Defense of Marriage Act, and like did phone banking in like 2009 to like get like marriage equality. So it's like it's felt like there's been like this forward progression of like not just like queer rights, but like queer representation. And even as we're getting this like pushback against it, where Worldcon is wondering like, why are there so many of you? Uh, I feel like a lot of us that like grew up under like those darker times, um, are just so like done with hiding in the closet. Like every time I see somebody say like, I don't want to see that, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to write more of it. I'm going to add more sapphics to this book now. For every time somebody says they don't want to see it, I'm adding another. I think that like we're so happy to like have the representation in the books and like the community. I don't, at least in our like corner of the world, like I don't see it like being anything but like further celebration. Even if the rest of the world doesn't want it, I just hope we just keep celebrating us.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I grew up under Don't Ask, Don't Tell as well, and I remember seeing a lot in fandom this kind of attitude that, well, like the gay stuff is fine, but that's for fan fiction, right? And not really for the canon stuff. And so, going along and seeing like a lot more like sapphic representation and like queer representation has been like really meaningful to me.
Yeah, as someone who is not a preference romance reader, it's definitely been that like it's definitely a lot easier to find genre work that is queer, like more broadly, but isn't a romance, and like especially now. Um where I can like have a bit more of that discerning taste because it doesn't feel like there's like like a dearth of work. It's like, oh, this is the one, like this is the one cake we baked. Sorry. But now it's like, okay, well, I can like develop like my palette, I think. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with everything really. Um, though honestly, I think that right now with the climate of things, that it's going to get harder before it gets easier. Um, and that we're going to have to push a lot more. I agree with the that things have been going forward, but I think right now, we're definitely getting a lot of pushback, and in order to keep moving forward, I think that we're going to have to uh, use a lot more strength and really dive into it. And I think that that's going to be difficult, and it's not going to feel very fun for a while in the way that like I personally want it to. I don't want to say that it's going to get worse before it gets better, but it kind of is. It's not necessarily that it's hopeless. I don't think anything is hopeless, but I think that right now uh is a we're very close to the line of how we react to things is going to affect uh how things go. If we're not, if they think we're not going to push back against them trying to erase us and censor us hard enough, then they're going to try to get away with even more stuff. And so I think we're going to see in the broader space regarding where Sapphic stories and characters fit in, I think that we're really going to have to push into that space um, before we are able to just be in that space without any pushing. I think that some some things that are already in that space, um, as we've seen with itch.io and other places, we're being removed from spaces already, and we are making our own spaces. But I think the future right now holds a lot more activism than we would like it to for this day and age. I think that 10 years ago, we were hoping that in 2025 we would just be and not have to tell people that we have to be.
I think what Day is saying is absolutely true, and I wanna jump off of it a little bit and say, you know, if whether you're a writer or a reader, it's really important that if you want this space and this niche to continue to grow and flourish, that there are pushbacks from people who aren't just the authors. I think our future is tied up in the hands of buyers a lot of the time. And it's been really heartening to see that after the huge censorship wave that just got rolled out, a lot of people are calling PayPal, Stripe, Mastercard, and Visa to voice their concerns. And I think that's really important that we continue doing that. And it's not going to be the last time that we're going to have to all stand up and say something. But when readers are able to stand up and say something alongside the people who are making it, that is really incredible and helps us all out a lot because we can only we only have so much time in a day, right? Like that is something that asks a lot of our energy and our time and our emotional energy and our mental energy, and both of those things are also really important in creating books and having that to invest in them. So we're doing the work, and if anyone out there can help us and do the work with us, that is fantastic because there's only so much we can do.
Absolutely. Oh, goodness gracious, sorry. Absolutely. I think it's super important that not just the authors, but also the readers be involved in where we go next. And I really appreciate the wave of people that have been reaching out to all these different card carriers lately with the Itch.io situation, with the Steam situation, and all that, because it's very important, and we're getting less and less and less spaces to exist in, and it's incredibly frustrating. So I want to thank you all again so much for being on this panel with me and being willing to talk for an hour and a half now. It looks like it's been. So the last thing that I want you guys to do is to shout yourself out. We're gonna go in alphabetical order again. So Day is gonna start. Tell us what Sapphic SFF books you currently have or are working on, and where people can find them online.
Okay, I'm coughing to death. Um, um, so currently I have a monster romance that takes place in another world called Devour. Of course, by Daystorm, um, which can be found. That specific book can be found. That specific book can be found on books2read.com, and it's just books2read.com slash devour daystorm. No dashes or anything. And my general website is d dash author dot link. Um, sorry. And right now I have a sapphic sci-fi fantasy romance that is about space angels uh, in the works that I'm planning on. And I have a sapphic sort of fairy tale inspired fantasy romance that is also in the works that is the about a sun princess and a storm princess. Um, Can't tell you which will happen first because they're just getting ready on when the news happens. But uh, yeah, that's what I've got out, and that's what I'm working on.
Thank you so much, Day. Dax, why don't you tell us about what Sapphic SFF books you have and what you're working on next and where people can find them?
Absolutely. So my debut is a shorter novel, Lake of Feathers and Moonbeams. It is a sapphic retelling of Swan Lake. Um, and I also have like a series that I'm currently in the middle of writing. The first like book in that is Shades in Silver, which is about unicorn people and also kind of low key a Swan Lake retelling because I just love that story so much. Um, Stars and Soil is the next book. It's kind of like what if Catherine of Aragon and Anne Boleyn decided to kill Henry and fuck each other? And I'm sorry for letting that F bomb drop. Uh, instead of fighting each other. And then Smoke and Steel is like my super toxic warlord Xena inspired redemption arc disaster bisexual. Um, and then I'm currently working on Shackles and Shards, which is an own voices dissociative disorder representation of a death cleric slash like death priestess in the ashes of a rebellion fighting back against like the counter revolution that wants to restore the monarchy, and kind of like examining the failures of different revolutions and how we can learn from mistakes about that. But also there's like necromancy, shadow magic, and like polyamorous lesbians. I'm hoping that'll be out this fall. You can find all of that on store.dax.inc. That's my like own store, but they're also available on like Kobo and Smashwords and Amazon. Yeah, store.dax.inc if you like epic fantasy with like magic and revolutions, basically.
Hell yeah. Really quickly, since you shouted it out earlier, can you tell us a little bit more about Conjured Ink as well?
Oh, yes, of course I can. So Conjured Ink, me and Kat started talking about this like actually like a month ago, but it was supposed to be a way for like authors to connect their direct stores to like uh a website without having to like actually know how to run a store and stuff. It was going to be like a one-click setup uh thing, and then the itch.io thing happened, and we're like, okay, so this is actually going to be a larger thing, and it's open source free software that's supposed to like the vision is you can set up your own storefront, and we're kind of finding a way to sidestep sorry for my dog sidestep the payment processor issue of it all by making it harder for them to take down works like distributing uh, the books in such a way and other creative works too that like it would be impossible for payment processors to like target every single book because they'd have to go after each book individually the way we're setting this up um, and then it like creates like a catalog and anybody can like create a catalog. So like I could create a Sapphic SFF catalog where I collect all of the direct stores for Sapphic SFF and you can browse it like it's a normal storefront, but it's like actually a collection of like direct stores. And it's gonna have like a lot of like auto magic stuff, like things will happen auto magically without you needing to like know how to like set up stuff behind the scenes. We're really excited about it. It's a collective. There's like a lot of help that we could use. It's not just like tech help, but it's also like we have some artists who are making like mascots, and we have some authors who are helping with like the copy editing of like the marketing, and we've got like some marketing people who are like, actually, that's terrible. What are you, an author? Oh, that's why you don't know anything about marketing. Okay, got it. And we've got like business people. So like if you have a skill and you want to like check us out, like conjured.inc, we'll take you to the Discord. And if you just want to know when it actually launches, you can sign up there too. But it's going to be like the next big thing. And really resistant to payment processors being able to like swoop in and like just take down an entire storefront. Uh, yeah, just come check us out, please.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. And to Kat as well for working on putting that together. I'm really excited to see where that goes from here. So thank you again so much for being here. Lads, why don't you tell us next about what Sapphic SFF books you have or are working on and where people can find them?
Hi. Yeah, so I'm Lads Writing on most social media platforms. So I debuted with a sapphic novella. It's called Ice Upon a Pier. It is a fantasy retelling of the life of Richard Kuklinski, except now he's an ice magic wielding lesbian in a fantasy reimagining of 80s New York. Um Love Girl Failure Ruta. Shout out. Then there's the Fealty of Monsters series, which yes, I know I yap about Sasha all the time. But there are even more sapphics coming. They're all horrible. You're welcome. The Cradle of Eternal Night is my dark dark adventure fantasy about a bard and a witch on a quest to save their dark world from its eternal darkness. It's illustrated by Palm Poison. Fealty is illustrated by Soren Hexen. And then, yeah, I'm just like, my brain has just been on the Institute of Manners Fealty Volume 2, but I have ideas. There are ideas brewing. But yeah, it's just the Fealty show right now.
Ideas are always good, and I'm excited to see what you come up with next. Although I am excited for Institute of Manners as well. I need more of these terrible people. Thank you so much again for being here. Morgan, you're up next. Tell us about what Sapphic SFF books you currently have and are working on and where people can find them.
Yeah, so I'm Morgan Dante. My works in progress list is extremely long, but I am working on a sapphic dark fantasy. My current sapphic books that are out, I have Providence Girls, which is a horror romance. About two women who fall in love while one is changing into a fish monster. And then I also have Unholy with Eyes Like Wolves, which is a romance. It takes place in 17th century Hungary, and it's a romance between the main character, Elizabeth Bathory, and Carmilla. And you can find all my works at morgandante.com. And thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here, Morgan. All right, V, you're up next. Tell us what Sapphic SFF books you currently have and or are working on and where people can find them.
All right. I am Visceral Hit, all one word on pretty much every platform. I'm gonna drop my link tree in the chat on YouTube and hope it doesn't flag me. Yeah, there we go. If you want to find any of my stuff, you can just put that in your address bar. Um, but yeah, I am working on Beyond Bringers right now. Due to the itch situation, it is now a part one and part two novel uh, because the rest of it I don't think can go there. But um, that being said, it is a sapphic sci-fi horror novel about see my short pitch. Where did I have a lot of tabs open right now all of a sudden? Really, my short pitch for it is that it is a book that is about uh, limits, language, and where humanity is lost. I love this story. The main character, Neve, is she's taken on this new position of being a biotheologist in a world that is rapidly losing itself to a semi sentient entity known as the Beyond, as it swallows up entire landscapes and transforms them into sort of nonsensical spaces. The people of the world are very terrified of it, and her job is to bridge their understanding of their world with this incoming new world that is taking theirs away from them. And in this story, she meets a lot of different women, and all of them have a little bit of something for her. So you should definitely read it and find out what sorts of situations she gets herself in, because there are quite a few situationships going on simultaneously. Um, and that is what I am currently working on. What I have coming next is more of an ensemble cast. Um, it's going to be told through the perspective of whichever character has the journal at the time, and it is about connections between people and where those go to rot. So I don't have a lot of details about it that I can share just yet, but I'm very interested in weird plants and sort of strange nature. So it'll have a lot of that involved inside of it. So I'm excited, and that's what's coming next. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. Last up, I'm Alex Harvey Rivas. I am a non binary and autistic author from the Pacific Northwest. I released a sapphic fantasy dark academia novel back in October called A Sharp and Lasting Pain that is about three casters in a magic college as a monstrous tragedy unfolds around them literally and metaphorically. It's also about being disabled in academia, autistic gifted kids undergoing the burnout arc, and deeply toxic codependent best friends. And I had a lot of fun writing it. I'm also now working on The Distance Between Stars and Salt, which is a sapphic seafaring tragic fantasy novel about a married lesbian couple who goes on an adventure because one of them is the chosen one to defeat the world devourer, as told by her wife as a eulogy at her funeral. So it's been very sad, but very fun to write, and I've been having an absolute blast with it. So with all that out of the way, thank you all again so much for being here, both the panelists and the viewers alike. I hope you all have a wonderful night, and thank you so much again. All right. Gosh.
Congrats, everybody! We did it.
Yeah.
Yay!
Woo!
Nobody died.